how to play Invincible, the hero building game. Invincible is a cooperative bag building game in which you're going to be pulling cubes out of a bag simultaneously in order to complete various objectives based on the current episode that you have chosen. Here, I have chosen the first episode called Short-Staffed in the Hero Department, and in order to win, you can see the goal is listed as defeat all 3 Flaxen villains before the time runs out. That's going to be different for every episode. There are multiple ways in which you can lose this game. I'll quickly go over those and I'll explain the mechanics of the game. You can lose the game by having your heroes KO'd 3 times. Each of your heroes has 10 hit points. If that gets sent to 0 at any point, you will KO one of your heroes. If that happens 3 times collectively, it could be the same hero 3 times or 3 different heroes once, you will lose the game. If 15 of these civilians die, when a civilian dies, they come off of the danger area and come down here into the casualties area. If 15 of these spots are full, the game is also lost. The game is lost if you run out of time on the track. You'll notice the 6th round here says you lose. That is different for every scenario. And then finally you lose if any civilians, or if all of the civilians in one of these 3 zones die. You'll notice Zone A, B, and C. So that's how you lose. How do you win, and how do you play the game? So the game is going to take place over a set number of rounds, again determined by the episode you're in, and each round follows a very specific round sequence. So the first thing you're going to do for every round is advance the episode marker. So you'll notice here, this episode marker starts off the board. When I moved it on to this 1, you'll notice that there are 2 symbols here, a 1 and a 2. That's going to prompt me to draw a card off of the 1 deck and off of the 2 deck. Every time you see different symbols up here, you're going to then do that symbol, and some of them are episode specific. So you notice in this episode, this little circular symbol is going to mean in this episode, you're going to put out reinforcements. So if I move there the second round, I would then put a minion onto the A, B, and C, which I will do now so you can see what it would look like if we have started the second round. Every time you put out different things, there's various symbols out there that allow you to put out things. The most common one you're going to see is going to be putting out villains. When you put out a villain, you're going to draw the villain card from the top of the deck, 1, 2, or 3, as you see up here. You're then going to place the villain in the zone that it goes into. So in this case, both of these villains happen to go in Zone B. In the top right of every villain, they're going to have an immediate effect. If they do, you're going to then do that effect immediately. In this case, this exclamation point symbol literally means take one of these safe civilians and move them to danger. So if both of these guys had come out, we would actually do that 3 times total, since the guy on the right has 2 symbols and the guy on the left has 1. Once that's done, you will then move to the next part of the round, which is the hero phase. This is where most of your actions are going to be taking place, and this is where the bag building and push your luck element is going to come in. You'll notice here, if you look on your player board, you have different colored spots here that you can put these cubes on. And in this bag, there is a set of cubes that every character starts the game with. And those sets of cubes look like this. You have 6 black cubes and then 3 of 4 different colors, orange, purple, blue, and yellow. And that's what makes up your bag. So on any player's turn, and this game actually does take place simultaneously, and there's not actually discrete actions. So I could take 4 actions while you take none, and it's real time, so we can make sure that we're planning back and forth in the best way possible. This will make sense in a moment. When you take your action, you're going to draw 3 cubes from the bag every time. So every time you reach into the bag, you're always going to draw 3. You're then going to take those 3 cubes, and you're going to place them here in the ready area. Now, before I'm able to draw from my bag again, I have to choose what to do with all 3 of these cubes before I can then take another action. Now, if my partner is also playing with me, they could draw 3 cubes, they could place all 3 of their cubes, they could then draw 3 more cubes and keep going while I wait for them to continue, because maybe some of my actions would allow me to do things in a specific order that is beneficial. So here's how this works. There are 5 different colors of cubes, with black being one of them. And every time you place a cube, you're going to place the cube on a matching color. So you'll notice on your board here, every player board has some generic actions. These orange actions here are going to give you points these are spending points that don't actually do anything when you activate them. So right now I've activated this and I've activated this. Things get activated when you put the final cube on it. So as an example, if I were to activate the second yellow cube here, I would then immediately, at that time when I put the second cube down, get to do 2 damage to one of these 2 cards. By the way, these cards have different amount of hit points for 2, 3, and 4 players, depending on your player count. In this case, if I were to then put down a second yellow cube, as soon as I put that second yellow cube down, I have to use this power, which is do 2 damage right now. In this case, by the way, Invincible should start on area A, and Adam Eve should start on area B. So Adam Eve is here. If I were to do this, there's nobody in my area, so I can't attack them. That'll make more sense momentarily. So the 4 kind of things you can activate are going to be buying points at the end of the round. This will make sense in a little bit, but you will be able to buy new cards at the end of the round. They're going to cost a certain amount based on the top left. So in order to purchase this card, I would need 3 purchasing points at the end of the round. I currently have 2. I would hope to at least get 1 more by the end of the round. So now that I've placed my 3 cubes, I could then decide to take 3 more cubes and put them in my ready area. And I can keep going from here. And every time you fill in an action, you then immediately take that action. The second thing to consider is in this game, the black cubes are actually wild. So anytime you pull a black cube, you can choose to put it anywhere on the board. However, if you ever have 5 black cubes visible at any given time, whether or not they are on cards or in your ready area, you then crash. So in this case, if I had these 1, 2, 3 black cubes out here ready to make these cards kind of ready to go, if I draw this from my bag, you'll notice I now have 5 black cubes showing. I don't actually get to use these. My character crashes and is out for the rest of the round. So that is the push your luck element in this. Now, quick overview of what some of the actions do. Anytime you see that symbol, you're going to do damage. You can do damage to people that you're in the zone of. So you'll notice here there are 3 zones, Zone A, Zone B, and Zone C. Invincible is currently in Zone A. Invincible can't attack anybody because there's nobody here. He can attack a minion. Minions are just 1 damage enemies that can sometimes do bad things. So if Invincible had activated this 2 or this 1, he could have, before he crashed, get rid of this minion. Now, Adam Eve, over here, she can choose to attack any of the villains, the minion or the 2 villains in the zone that she's in. So that's what the attack symbols are going to be. Anytime you see move, that allows you to take your character and move them to an adjacent zone. So Adam Eve can move to A, or she can move to C. You also have the ability to move to the Guardian's HQ. If you're in the Guardian HQ to start a round, starting the following round, you would then heal 2 health if you have taken any damage. The other thing is you would then get to reflip this token back over if you had used it. This token allows you to, let's say this draw did not have 2 black cubes, but instead had something like this. If I made this draw, and now I have 4 black cubes, which is really, really close to getting my 5th one, I could flip this over, set these cubes aside, draw 3 more cubes from the bag, and use those instead. Now, you can't do that if you also were to go over again. So in this case, maybe I drew something like this. I could then use these 3 cubes. I did not hit my 5 yet. I could put these out on the board like that. Maybe I load up to hopefully get a rescue. And then maybe I use, something like that. So in this case, that allows me to flip it, redraw, and then once I've redrawn, I can throw the original cubes back in the bag and keep going. This only replenishes if you start your round in the Hero HQ. That's what that symbology means there. Heal 2 health and flip your token back over. Heroes can only damage enemies in the zone that they're in. Some attacks have a keyword called ranged that allows you to do 1 zone adjacent. Importantly, when you're in the Guardian's HQ, you are not adjacent to any zone. You are kind of off in the distance, healing yourself and protecting yourself. The last kind of keyword to go over is going to be rescue. Rescue allows you to take a civilian in the zone you're in and move them back to safety. So if I have rescue 1, that lets me rescue 1 civilian. In this case, ranged rescue 1 would allow Adam Eve to potentially, if she was here, she could rescue someone in the zone she's in or a zone on either side of her. So maybe she would do that instead. Finally, you'll notice that Invincible here has crashed, and that was because we had 5 black cubes showing at any one time. So if Invincible is crashed, he doesn't take any damage because he's crashed, and the rescue keyword actually could allow you to, instead of saving a civilian, you could try a rescue on one of your cooperative players, so one of your teammates. What you do is, instead of using your rescue to rescue a civilian, so she can use a ranged rescue, which means she actually can try this on Invincible instead. So instead of rescuing this person, you roll this die. If you roll this, the rescue is successful. If you roll this, the rescue is successful, and you actually get one of these purchasing points for the next phase. If you roll this, it's unsuccessful. When I roll this die, say it's successful, I get an extra green. So I'll put this over here to mark that for myself. Invincible actually gets to stand back up, and now Invincible actually can use these dice, or these cubes that he drew the first time. So he doesn't get to then redraw. He's out for the round after using those cubes, but cooperatively allows you to protect and save your teammates if they accidentally push their luck too far. If it failed, that's fine. At the end of the round, anyone that is still laid over and crashed, let's say that didn't work, you then go on to the next round, or the end of the round, which is, if anyone is crashed, you're going to roll this crash die. You can take up to 6 damage, but there is kind of an exploding die type thing where you take 1 damage and then roll again. So there is kind of not necessarily an upper limit, but you notice you only have 10 health, so crashing could potentially be bad. You'll take the damage, you'll then stand yourself back up, and the following round you will be ready to go again. After the hero phase is the training phase. During the training phase is when you're going to be adding more cards and more abilities. So you're actually going to start the game with a hand of 5 cards. You're going to have 4 of these cards that are called superpowers, and you'll notice that these have a cost on them. That's the cost it's going to take during the training phase to purchase this card with the orange and green that you got during the round. So now during the training phase, I could potentially spend my 3 points to get this card, which is Cut Punch, which I could then put under here, and it has to match the color. So you've got a purple card slot, a yellow, blue, and an orange card slot. You also have, denoted here, 2 extra card slots that can hold any 2 colors. During the training phase, you can always flip-flop cards around, so that's totally fine. During the training phase, there's basically 2 points to it. One, you're going to be looking to potentially purchase some of these cards to put under here to give you more options. The second thing you have the option to do is discard any card from your hand, and when you do that, you permanently get to add a cube of that color to the bag. So if I discarded either of these 2, I would get to permanently add an orange cube to my bag, or permanently add a yellow cube. This card is called an ultimate power. This is in the more advanced version of the game. It's not in the base game, but in advanced power, if I discard this, you'll notice this is orange and blue. I would get to choose whether or not I wanted an orange power or a blue power. Let's say, in this case, I had somehow built this orange power. Ultimate powers are only able to actually go underneath a power. You'll notice the artwork actually matches. So all the ones up here are what we call superpowers. And then ultimate powers are powers that must go underneath a matching color superpower. Ultimate powers are just better than superpowers in general. And the basic rules for superpower or ultimate powers are, in order to put any cubes on this, I have to first fully activate this card. So during the next round, I would have to have 2 orange cubes on this before I could ever start putting cubes on this ultimate power. And this ultimate power must be underneath an orange card or a blue card. During this training phase, you could, if I had a blue card here, I could move this over during that phase if I drew another orange one and put it here, but you always have to have a matching card for your ultimate power to go underneath. You also are only able to get 1 extra cube per round, so I cannot discard both of these cards to get 2 more yellow cubes. I can only discard one of them to get a yellow cube. Finally, once you're done with the training phase, you're then going to redraw back up to 5 cards in your hand. You have the option to draw 1 ultimate power if you'd like, and only 1, and then the rest of them come from the superpowers deck. So even if you have an ultimate power in your hand, I can still draw 1 ultimate power every training phase, and then whatever I have left, I draw from the superpower deck to fill my hand back up to 5. There's a lot of different cards in here, which creates a lot of variability in the game. Finally, you will win the game by completing whatever objective is on the objective for that episode before you either run out of time, lose all of the casualties in one zone, lose 15 casualties, or your heroes are KO'd 3 times. I hope this helps learn the game. There are some smaller rules and things to go over. Some of the symbology here in the game is great in terms of going over things. There's ways to add permanent damage to things. There is some symbology about what minions do. Those are all minor, and I hope you can figure those out from the rulebook, but I hope this gives you a good overview of how to get started. Enjoy the game. This is one of the co-ops that I've really enjoyed recently.